Ciao from Rome!
Ciao!
Hi guys, I'm Allegra Hoffman. I go to school at the University of Illinois, but I'm studying here in Rome, healthcare management, and then I'm studying here in Rome, food and culture.
I'm Brooke. I also go to the University of Illinois. I study psychology and social work, but I'm here in Rome at Gustolab studying food and culture.
Hi, I'm Ciara. I also study at University of Illinois. I study social work, and we're also all here at Gustolab, obviously studying food and culture. So today we're going to talk about Sustainable Development Goals that were developed by the UN in 2015, and we're going to be putting specific emphasis on Goal 12. We will explore how Italy has incorporated these goals into their culture, and we'll explain how we adapted to them as abroad American students. Okay, so as the UN states, the 17 sustainable goals invest in the type of future that we want. And they do this through economic development, partnerships, and reducing inequality. The 17 sustainable development goals were first adopted after the previous 8 Millennium Development Goals, or MDGs, were expired in 2015. The SDG goals focus on bettering climate change, poverty, education, equity and equality for all people in the environment, and they plan to do this by 2030. Though it is not required by law to follow the SDGs, 193 countries are committed to bettering futures locally and globally by pursuing sustainable development goals. Though a majority of our world is involved in this movement, studies conducted in September of 2015 highlighted that only 4% of people in the United Kingdom were aware of the Millennial Development Goals that were previously in state until 2015. As the UK is one of the most developed regions in the entire world, it is clear that we have to do more to spread the awareness about Sustainable Development Goals. And that's why we're here on Facebook Live today.
Our webinar will focus on Goal 12, and more specifically consumer behavior, regarding waste management in Italy and how we as study abroad students have had to adapt to the Italian norms here in Rome. Goal 12 is set to ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns across nations. Achieving Goal 12 requires a strong national framework for sustainable consumption and production that is integrated into national and sectoral plans, sustainable business practices, and consumer behavior. Sustainable growth and development require minimizing the natural resources and toxic materials used, and the waste and pollutants generated throughout the entire production and consumption process. We gathered this information from the Sustainable Development Knowledge Platform provided by the United Nations.
According to the UN, overconsumption of food is detrimental to our health and the environment. While we are living in Rome, we've been going to the grocery store every day or every 2 days. This is not usually what we do in the States because usually we shop for a week at a time. Here we realize that our refrigerators are not as large as the ones we have at home, so we can't stock up on as much food as we usually would. This has been helping us not be as wasteful because we are only eating what we need for that one day or night. This helps the food stay fresh because we are not keeping a lot in our food. We are not keeping our food for such a long time. This also helps us make sure that we are not being as indulgent and as wasteful in what we buy here. We do not waste and we do not overconsume, and we're responsible for our consumption. As Goal 12 states, we need to be more responsible about this. Being here in Rome is making all of us very aware of how much we consume and waste in America. Like I stated earlier, our refrigerators are smaller here and we cannot fit as much food in, so we must buy our things responsibly and make sure we are not wasting our money or our food. The practices we have adopted here are hopefully going to stay with us when we go back to the States because it is a lot healthier and more responsible of a way to live. One of the targets of Goal 12 is to by 2030 halve per capita global food waste at retail and consumer levels and reduce food losses along production and supply chains, including harvest losses. In Italy, this is highly relevant, especially because a lot of the food is GOP, produced by region and with the consumer patterns of picking up produce frequently through the week, and there are less food losses. Another one of Goal 12's targets is to substantially reduce waste generation through prevention, reduction, recycling, and reuse. We all believe that this can be achieved because from what we have seen here, we know that people recycle way more than they do in America. Ciara will tell you more about this.
In comparison to the United States, Italy has a very complex waste disposal system, but the garbages here are clearly labeled, so we've been able to adjust to this process seamlessly. Italians separate their trash into 4 categories in order to recycle the most of their products. These categories are food and organic waste, glass, plastic, and metal, paper and card, and finally non-recyclables. Additionally, each of these categories are picked up on certain days of the week. Everyone in our apartment building has been abiding by these rules, not only out of the respect for the Italian culture, but also for the respect of the environment. Because of the efforts that the Italians and us study abroad students are making, the recycling rate for packaging materials is very high. The rate for paper recycling is 80%, for steel it is 74%, aluminum is also 74%, and glass is 70%. Adding citation, we believe that sustainable development goal is important. Therefore, we are motivated to work towards it by continuing to separate our trash, even though it is a little bit more time consuming. Also, by doing this, we hope to inspire other students traveling abroad to do the same. The Italian waste disposal and recycling system is controlled at the municipal level in accordance with national legislation, and it varies by region. The local commune is responsible for the disposal of waste and contracts its collection to a waste disposal company. You can find the guideline of these specific communes online. However, even though the collection of waste methods may be different throughout different regions of Italy, citizens are still required to sort their waste into these categories. They are non-recyclables, organic waste, and organic waste. Non-recyclable waste will end up in the landfill, and the recyclable waste will be used to manufacture new products, and organic waste is used in the production of fertilizers.
This system was very surprising to us as we arrived in Italy, and it took us a good amount of time to learn how it worked and to adapt to it. Before I came here, the thought of composting our organic waste had never crossed my mind or even seemed like an option. However, the consumption and production methods here in Italy and the clearly described disposal system has allowed us to adapt easily and reduce our footprint. As described, disposal system has, as we previously mentioned, the consumption method helps us to reduce the amount of organic waste we have, as well as consider the non-recyclable and recyclable waste we use. For instance, we don't need to use a lot of plastic bags each time we go grocery shopping, and also we have been reusing those bags as our garbage bags around the house instead of throwing them away. All in all, this system has helped to make us more aware of what recycling can really amount to. Generally in America, if someone separates their plastic from organic waste, they're considered to be good at recycling. And here it is only one part of a huge recycling system. Italy takes the recycling of waste to a whole new level, and it is refreshing to see such action taking place to preserve and benefit the earth. Because of efforts like these, already Italy's recycling industry is number one. So sorry guys, I'm overtired. Because of efforts like these, already Italy's recycling industry is number one in Europe. According to an issue by the Foundation for Sustainable Development and called Italy That Recycles, which imports 5.9 million tons of refuse a year as raw material to recycle, and also exports 450,000 tons of non-recyclable garbage to burn as combustibles in power plants that heat the homes of the Germans and the Dutch. We think that these statistics are awesome to hear, especially the fact that waste that would otherwise sit in a landfill is instead being used to produce heat for homes. This seems very innovative and hopefully inspiring for other countries.
Overall, today we talked about the Sustainable Development Goals, specifically Goal 12. We each stated different statistics and facts about how we will be taking much of what we learned and do here in Rome and transitioning it back to America, where we will leave when we leave our experience here. We hope to have provided clarification and insightful information that will prompt our viewers to join the movement of sustainable development. Thanks for tuning in.
Ciao!